this panel discussion will actually be about the difference between working in academia and industry. And with us today, we have Eshek Kalikus, who is doing a postdoc at KTH. So she has worked in industry before choosing to do an academic career. And then we also have Masume Gasemi, who took the opposite journey. So she has a PhD in physics and is now working in industry as an Azure data engineer at Accelerated Ever. And then we would also have Fatime, who has worked both in industry and done an academic career. But as I said earlier, unfortunately, Fatime is ill today. She's sick today. So it will be Masume, Esha, and I. And I will be the moderator, but since we are 3 persons, I will also take part in the discussions. And my name is Anna Bäcklund, and I work as the head of data and analytics platforms at Handelsbanken. And after I finished my studies, I actually jumped into the industry and haven't left since. Now, once again, so for the audience, please note that we try to keep things interactive. So this is also an interactive session, and we welcome any questions that you might have in the chat, and we will try to answer all of them accordingly. Cool. Okay, so let's see if I can stop sharing so that we can see all of us instead of the presentation. Okay, brilliant. And then let's start off with the first question. And welcome, Masume and Esha. I'm really happy to be able to discuss these things with you. So, I mean, what does a typical day look like in your field? And once again, could you please share the field you're currently working in to the audience? Masume, would you like to start? What does a typical day look like in your field?
Yes, I work as a consultant in the role of a data engineer or sometimes a data architect at a consultancy company called Ever. I'm from the group, the consultancy organization, which is called Accelerate. So a typical day can vary depending on the project when you are a consultant, but I can go a little back in time, talk about the time that I was working and in an in-house role at Allcell as a data engineer. So once like the data pipelines are up and running and the development phase is finished, so a typical day job usually starts by looking at the running pipeline. So you usually have pipelines that run in a streaming fashion or in batch in regular intervals. So monitoring them is usually the first thing that the data engineer starts doing, looking at the dashboards and checking everything is perfect, or sometimes failures happens, then you have to take care of them, figure out what went wrong. It's maybe in the code, it's maybe something else. So that's usually the start of the day. And on top of that, almost always comes requests from the rest of the team, the data scientists or the analysts or the product owners. They need some data, or this type of request. So another part of the time goes on dealing and communicating with the rest of the team. And planning basically how to do that, making the communications and all that. As a consultant, it may be a little bit different because I can work on different projects at the same time. One project could be in the initiation phase, and then there are lots of iterations between the whole team, the product owners, the requirement analysts, and also the customer. Most importantly, the customer, to first understand what they need. So like a large amount of time will be spent on figuring out what is needed, which changes over time as well. So it doesn't stay constant. If, for example, you can land in the middle of a project, as a consultant, so then you have to figure out ways around what's going on, how the pipelines work, and then once you figure out, the rest of the day would be similar as a typical data engineer. So.
It sounds like a lot, especially the last thing, last things you said, a lot about finding errors and figuring out how to solve them. The engineering, that's exactly what I expected to work with. I don't work with that, unfortunately, but it's not my turn. Ishe, what does a typical day look like in your field? And once again, please share, where you're currently working.
Thank you. I hope you guys can hear me well. Awesome. Yes, as you presented before, I'm a postdoctoral researcher at KTH. My background is in computer science, but more specifically, I work in data science and machine learning, dealing with problems related to fairness and explainability of machine learning models, and also applications related to, let's say, digital vulnerabilities like misinformation, political polarization, and so on. So I'm trying to create models that detect and mitigate these issues as well. So I also very happy that someone asked me that question, because it made me realize that even like my own family, my parents or my close friends have no clue about how my days look like. And they probably have a completely different image. And I can also say that there is no such thing as typical day in academia, at least that's my experience. And that might vary between different roles and seniorities, departments, faculties, work descriptions, and so on. But maybe I can explain this a little bit better by explaining the tasks we have in academia. So basically, we have tasks related to research, obviously, and these include conducting research, writing research papers or applications, and so on. And we also have tasks related to teaching. This could be classroom teaching or supervision of students, like master students, PhD students, etc. And also we have some administrative duties as well, being in joining the boards, discussing boring stuff, and so on. and also, in addition to all of these, okay, these are the things that we are paid for, but there are things that sort of voluntary but mandatory tasks, like supporting the research community by reviewing research papers or helping organizing conferences, giving talks, etc. So my role as a postdoctoral researcher are mostly like research based. So currently I don't have any classroom teaching. I had before and I will probably have in the future, but right now I only have student supervisions. So when you have classroom teachings, your days may look a little bit more organized. You basically like create teaching materials, attend lectures or grade exams, projects, and so on. And you have a more clear agenda. But research tasks are really also depending on the phase of the research, let's say. If you're at the beginning on the idea phase, you do more like a lot of reading, literature review, and brainstorming meetings. If you're in an implementation phase, you do coding, experiments, and so on. And of course, if you're in the writing phase, it's completely different. And I run multiple projects at the same time that also have different status. For example, I have a deadline for a conference next Tuesday. So prior to this event, I was writing my manuscript like a crazy. And for example, I have a brainstorming meeting for another project on Monday. So tomorrow I have to do a lot of readings and some preparation for that as well. Yeah, basically that's how it is. But again, these things change a lot. Like more senior researchers have more administrative duties than mine, or some people have more teaching duties and teaching-oriented roles as well. But that's how it is, at least on my side.
That's definitely one of the more varied job situations I've heard. Okay, hands on the heart, Eshe. Is it fun to do all these different kinds of tasks, or is it stressful to always change context?
A little bit of both, I would say. Yeah. And my feelings toward that also change every day. Like some days I feel the fun part more, some days I feel the stress part more, obviously. And yeah, so academia is very competitive and deadline driven. So we always have some deadline for an application, a conference, a submission or something, a revision. So yeah, that of course brings a lot of stress on a person. But of course, we have a lot of like fun things. At least I don't get concerned that I feel like I am repeating things or my days like are exactly the same. I'm so monotone and so on. I don't feel that way. So it is fun in that sense. And of course, like there are other fun things in academia, like university environment is fun as well.
Because you meet a lot of inspiring persons that are very specialized in their own areas, right?
Yeah, exactly. You meet many brilliant minds and also interacting with always like younger people, students. it gives a motivation. And yeah, also like universities are one of the most culturally diverse working environment, I would say. And I like that aspect as well.
This is so fascinating. I mean, okay, so I think that maybe I represent even more industry than you, Masuma, because I have worked for so many years in industry. And I am also a manager. I heard a comment earlier. I can only stand behind it. That, yeah, I don't want to be a manager because it's a lot of boring administrative work. It's true. There's a lot of boring but important administrative work. So I know that each day will look pretty much the same. Meetings. Now, if you don't like meetings, don't become a manager. If you do like to work together with fantastic people and brilliant teams, and help not only inspire but also set out some kind of vision when it comes to technology, and you like to see people grow, then become a manager. But be aware there will be a lot of meetings involved. And then when it comes to fun parts, so Isha, you described some fun parts in your job. Masum, what would you say are the most fun parts in your job?
Yeah, first I have to say something about the meetings. We do have many meetings during the day as well. So, especially since after I became a consultant, the number of meetings increased quite a lot. So yeah, some of them are boring, but some of them are very inspiring and useful. So the fun part of my day, and whenever I think about it, it's solving challenges. So like a day can start with a challenge. So the customer wants something new, or something happened, and you have to figure out how to solve it. So this is not that fun. But by the end of the day, when I solve it, the feeling is so good. So that's why I always looking forward to more challenges. It may sound scary a little bit or maybe quite a lot in the beginning, but you will always find a way to solve these challenges by yourself or by the help of other colleagues. So that's what I call a fun, to have challenges.
I think I agree, but as I said, it was some time since I worked with technical challenges. I think that what's most fun for me. I do like working with other persons. I think that's a huge part of why I like working at, companies and not going off doing my complete own thing. But maybe, when people have different ideas and we all come together to solve a problem, I think that's definitely one of the most fun parts. And I have to admit that the lunch discussions are usually very interesting too. Once again, to be perfectly transparent here. Okay, cool. I actually have a new question in the chat. So the question is then, how can we help persons from academic backgrounds to better learn how to work in industry? and then also people from industry that want to go into academics?
Can I start?
Yes, please.
Yes, very good question, and I can have some recommendations there. So yeah, I have this academic background. I did also a postdoc after my PhD. This was like 2017, and afterwards I was an assistant professor for another year. Even during my PhD, I was teaching a course. So and even way before that, I was a high school teacher. So I have like 8 years experience in academia, 5 years as a PhD. And then I decided that I want to move to industry. This was like the middle of 2018. The first job was easy because I was working with the software, and I found a job in this software company. That software company, I knew people, but it was quite or pretty much the same as what I did during my PhD. So maybe not much new stuff for me. So I figured out that this is not enough. I want to learn more, and I want to learn the new technology. So I started upskilling myself. I mean, it took 2 years. I did lots of studies, took many courses besides my day job. And I figured out after many of these courses that I could have learned lots of these skills during my PhD time. But there is a big gap when you study a PhD, or when you are in academia, and then in the way things work in the industry. I just take 2 simple examples. Like using a source code management system like GitHub is very standard and very typical in the industry. But as a student, it's not always like a requirement. It depends on the field, of course. I hadn't worked with GitHub, for example, during my whole studies. But it's such a typical tool in industry. So one first recommendation is that get to learn one of these tools, at least get familiar with the concepts. It's you're gonna work with it from the first day, and everybody expects you to understand how it works. And another recommendation, the thing that could have made it easier instead of studying for another 2 years after my PhD was to learn a programming language properly. I did know several programming languages, but not the way that the industry needs it. So, later on, and the third recommendation that I just realized that this was very important. Learn about project management. This is not a skill that is taught at university, but it's very important to know how a project is managed. There are concepts, very universal concepts that applies everywhere. But I figured out when I took a course in project management later on, while I was working in the industry, I realized that I could have applied most of these concepts when I was studying as a student or working as a professor as well. So that was basically my journey. I did 2 years of studying, took many courses, upskilled myself, but it could have been shorter. But my background as a PhD student, or as somebody who did a PhD, helped me quite a lot to find my way, to find like a program plan that works for me as well. So that was pretty much my journey.
I mean, this is so interesting. If I may ask, suppose now that I am doing a PhD, and I think that this resonates with me, that, okay, so I could try to explore these things as well. How do I apply project management if I haven't worked with that, seen it being implemented in academia earlier? So how do I go about it, basically?
I didn't get the question quite well.
No.
You mean once I am working in industry, or
no,
while I was working?
Suppose that I'm currently, so let's say that I haven't worked in industry, but instead I'm a PhD student, and I think that, this what Masuma just said really resonates with me. I want to apply some kind of project management on my current studies. How do I go about doing that?
Yes, working as a PhD or doing a PhD involves planning lots of projects. So you basically learn to be an independent researcher. So to me, that's like running a project, planning a project. So that's a kind of project management without knowing the concepts. So when you know how to plan the project, there is a pre-study phase. There are like certain elements. There are tools that can help. For example, I think these concepts would help a PhD student to manage their projects in a more professional or efficient way than just by figuring out by heart. So it's not always like that that you end up in a team, in a big team with seniors that will teach you or help you find your way. Most often you will be on your own. Most often, yeah, I mean, to my observation at least, you will be on your own and you have to figure it out. Sometimes it even happens that your supervisor does not know anything about the project or the thesis that you are going to work on, because this is the purpose of being a project. You have to find something new, you have to produce something. So this all needs some project management and organizing the work, and I think that would help in that sense.
Thank you. Isha, what about you? How to go from, working in the industry for a while to doing an academic career?
Well, it's a little bit a tough question because I don't want to mislead anybody. If we mean by like academic career, I at least right now I'm going to assume we talk about the classical ladder of academia, starting with a PhD, followed by tenure track, and so on. And of course, you can get different roles in academia as well, and they all have different requirements and so on. But I'm going to focus on that at least. Unfortunately, like there are certain entry requirements you need to have to apply for a PhD. Most universities require master's degree, and in some countries they have like honors. They accept students with an honors degree directly from bachelor's, but quite rarely. And again, some countries do the process, the admission process is almost like a student selection process, reviewing students' GPA and language skills and things like that. But in Sweden, and as far as I know, in other Nordic countries, it is more similar to job hiring, which I like it a lot. So yeah, PhD students are considered to be employees, and also you go through interviews when you are selected. Of course, you still have to have like certain things like master's degree, language requirements, and so on. But still, like your skills and also your experience in industry matter a lot. So I personally also get involved in hiring of PhD students. And if I see a candidate who spent time in industry, learn most of the data science and machine learning concepts, implemented them, I take that as like a plus when I consider that candidate. So yeah, but like of course I can give that as a hint to apply, like if someone wants to switch to academia from industry or directly from their earlier studies, apply as many positions as possible and don't get discouraged if you get rejection. So for example, I remember I applied to a position in Umeå first, and there were 120 applicants, and I was shortlisted to 3 applicants, and ended up being second and couldn't get the role. So those kind of things can happen. Like they only hire one person for a position, many people apply. So keep applying, don't get discouraged, try to make a good application, and also try to show all your skills during the interview, especially your hands-on skills. They're very important in academia as well, especially during PhD. Those are the things I can, like on top of my head, at least share with you.
So suppose that you have been working as, I don't know, data scientist or software developer also for a couple of years, then it sounds as if it would be beneficial to show off the analytical skills or maybe even the programming skills if you are, interested in doing a PhD in one of these areas, right?
Yeah, definitely. So prior my PhD, I was a research engineer at Huawei Technologies. So yes, we were also working on topics related to machine learning and natural language processing. And I was working on real data and implementing many different models available back then. So showing those really helped me to ace my interview. I can say that. I didn't have like amazing GPAs or something, or I wasn't an honor student, but still I got like many offers, not only from one position, but yeah, I applied many and I also managed to secure several.
We have a new question in the chat as well. I mean, this is actually a bit interesting, isn't it? So we know that the market today and the world today is a little bit more, insecure compared to a couple of years ago. We have financial instability. We don't really know what will happen in when it comes to wars going on in the world and so on. So when it comes to long-term stability and also to job prospects, what do they look like in your respective sector or field?
I can go on. So yeah, looking back historically, there always has been crisis. So there has been like better periods, but I mean, in a lifetime, several crises happens. So I always think that if you do your best, you may end up being jobless for a short while, but you will definitely find the next one pretty quickly. So yeah, I mean, it's being also optimistic. So yeah, I mean, I understand that it can be pretty tough sometimes at some companies or globally, but crisis will pass. You do your best, you learn every day, then you'll get the next one pretty much soon. And about stability in academia, in industry, it's like the job is most often a permanent job. After like what is it called, a probation period is a permanent job. But it doesn't mean that it stays forever. So you may end up being cut down at some point. But comparing to academia, I find it much more secure. Because the reason for saying that is that once you lose one, it's more probable that you get the next one faster than. But once you're doing a PhD, it feels that it's like a 5-year contract, and then you have to find a job. So it can look very scary or challenging, which it is. The first job is really challenging to find. But switching between job in the industry, for me personally, feels more secure than. I'm not against doing a PhD. I loved my PhD. That was my dream to do that, and I did it. But just the feeling that I had by the time was that when the time is over, there's gonna be challenges for finding the job. I had it pretty much like everyone else. By the way, do you hear this noise in the background?
Yes.
Hear some beep. I don't know from where it comes. Okay.
It sounds like someone is playing a game.
Let me see if I can fix it. I think there's something wrong. I think there's something really wrong with my computer. It was not the headphone. I'm still hearing it. Yeah. Do you want me to leave and join?
if you want to, I mean, we can still hear you. Your voice is higher, louder than the background noise, so it's fine.
Okay, I mute.
Cool. Eshe, do you want to go on, or should I go on?
Yeah, okay, I can go on, but that's also sort of a sensitive topic for me as well. Yeah, so of course the stability aspect is one of the most challenging part being in academia. And I can openly say that I personally face the anxiety related to the whole uncertainty of how my life is going to be next couple of years situation. So yeah, despite in industry, academia, up until some point is always a time limited contract. Your PhD studies as well, like you, of course, you're admitted to study 4 to 5 years with some sort of funding, but your contract is extended yearly, and you have to follow some sort of study plan, which is also a very difficult thing in PhD. Many things can go wrong, unplanned, and so on. And yeah, you may face the issue that your contract may not be actually extended. And of course, after PhD is another unknown period. Mostly if you want to follow a career in academia, you get a postdoc position like I did. And postdoc contracts are either 2 or 3 years in most cases. At least KTH has a policy to limit for 2 years, for example. And it's much easier to hire a postdoc and get funding for a postdoc because, yeah, it's cheap for 2 years. And they hire much more than they open actual like tenure track positions that will end up in a permanent position in academia. And most people do multiple postdocs and still may not secure a tenure position. And I also don't know like what's going to happen next year when my contract ends and so on. I cannot plan anything. If I want to, for example, think about, maybe I should we should consider buying an apartment or something in Stockholm, because I'm very much fed up with also like living in short contract apartments here as well. I keep moving with my small child, but we cannot plan that. I don't know if I will get a position in Stockholm somewhere else, or if I want to stay in academia and so on, and finally give up or not. Or yeah, I cannot even like pick a certain location for my child's daycare. So it's really tough. A funny story, like my bank didn't give me a credit card because my contract was time limited. And then I got like a letter, look, I have a PhD, I work in one of the most reputable universities in this country, I'm highly skilled, and my salary is not super low. And of course lower than most people in academia, but still according to their criteria. And then yeah, they gave me one, but with a very low, basically, limit. Yeah, because I don't have a permanent contract. So yeah, those kind of things happen, and of course, like you sometimes feel that is it really worth it, the whole trouble, and end up being existential crisis, becoming your daily thing. But yeah, those are the, let's say, I don't want to discourage anyone, of course, just listening to that, but there is this side as well that you need to consider.
But I think it's really good. I mean, we will talk about job prospects as well, which is a bit, on a higher note. But I think it's really good to showcase both, advantages of working in a specific sector in a specific job, but also the disadvantages, because that helps out a lot of the persons that might be considering going into different directions. So before talking about job prospects in the different sectors, we also have a question to Masume. Before you talk about that, Masume, then maybe I should talk a little bit about disadvantages working in industry. No, I'm joking, there are a lot of advantages, but let me put it this way. I have worked at a lot of large corporations. They all have very good benefits in a lot of different ways, but it's also quite tricky to navigate because you have a lot of internal politics that you need to balance your role between. Now, at most of these companies, it's encouraged to stay for a long time, talking about stability in the beginning. And also, when I started out, I didn't have any experience of working at all. So, of course, and my parents' generation are the kind of persons that have worked their whole life at one company. So that was, I mean, no one really said that to us in school, but that was the truth that, we saw on television and everywhere. So my expectation when I started at my first company was that I would work there for the rest of my life. And that was also encouraged from the company. Now, what do you think if everyone within the large corporation stays there for the whole life? Do you think that they will experience new ideas and new influences and see other parts of the industry that might be good to bring home to the first company? No. I mean, it really, it really goes to show that even if it's good to have worked for a long time, because you get to know all the different areas within a company, it's very easy to fall into the trap of thinking in a specific way and not seeing all this modern stuff that's out there. And that's also balance for the companies to take into consideration when, employing persons for different roles. Right, okay. The question to Masumeh before we talk about, advancement in the different sectors, that is then written in the chat. So, Masumeh, in your move from academia to industry, Samina now is then very curious to know about the challenges you faced in demonstrating your suitability to companies and fitting into the industry. How did you navigate and address these challenges?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think my experience doing this PhD helped me quite a lot because I had presented at many different conferences, so I had lots of teaching. I'm sorry for the noise in the background. This time is my son. So I had this teaching experience, so I had learned how to present myself. So that's solved part of the problem. But showing the technical ability, the way that I conquered it was to do some certifications. So, I mean, I was sure that I could do the job. And then when I went to interviews, apart from the certifications, I mean, I didn't overdo that. I just took maybe 1, 2, which just showed that I can do the job, even because I did this certification that mentions you have to have 2 years of at least 2 years of experience before being able to pass this. So this was one part of that. Another part was that when they asked me for doing home assignments, like a quick test, which is done in a few hours, I welcomed it because I could show them quite easily that I have learned how to do that. I mean, I had lots of studies, but unless you show them that you can do the job, it doesn't worth anything in their eyes, probably. So yeah, personally, this too helped me quite a lot. And this is always what I recommend to the juniors, because I mean, when they ask me what to do, I tell them, for example, in our field, in the field of data, one of the first prerequisites is to know how to work with the cloud environment. So learn one of them and show the employer that you can work with one of these. So, I mean, this is just an example. There are many other qualifications that can help.
Brilliant, thank you. And Samina, if you want to follow up with another question, or if you want Masumeh to clarify something, please write that in the chat. Right, okay, the second part of the question that Kathleen wrote earlier was, what does job advancement look like in your field? And maybe I will steal that one to start off with, because once again, if you work at larger corporations, there are a lot of different job prospects, as in a lot. And quite often you're also encouraged to try out different parts of the company, because it's good both for you and also for the company that you learn about all these different areas. So, you know, at a bank, you might work both in the business operations to understand the business side of things. You might work at, you know, the customer facing department. You might work on the tech side of things, on the data side of things, on the strategic side of things, and then similar to retail, similar to health tech, and so on and so forth. And that's just, you know, going in between areas so that you broaden your experience. Then of course, it's also quite common to have quite clear ways for the employees, both if you want to become some kind of you know, leader or a manager, and also if you want to become some kind of expert. The more that that I work, the more I realize that maybe one of the most fun leadership positions that I see without having a management responsibilities, because that's going into a little bit more administrative work, might be the role of an architect, not an enterprise architect. I mean, then of course you would work a lot with the higher strategies for the company, but on the other hand, it's very easy to lose sight of, you know, the actual systems that you want the company to implement. So preferably an architect at, you know, a level where you still are a bit operational. Yeah, so maybe that's what I will be when I grow up. Okay, over to you, Ersan Masome. What does a job advancement look like for you two?
I can go this time. Now I'm going to sort of like show a little bit of the like pink side of academia, let's say. I don't want to only show the dark and gloomy side, of course. And also that's one of the reasons I'm still in academia. Of course, like there are many different prospects, and you have sort of the diversity and also freedom, which path to follow. You can always follow the classical path of academia, and when you have a permanent role, you start building your own group, research group, hire PhD students, and only like build your career on research based. Or if you're more passionate about teaching, you can make great contributions on teaching and get roles more on that. And you can have different managerial roles also in academia. That's a possibility, and many people do that too. And also there are lots of needs for that as well. And actually, as a person in academia, you can take a lot of like roles outside of academia as well. Usually, people appreciate the knowledge and expertise of people in academia outside of academia as well. I know many people do consultancy in addition to their academic roles, or they initiate their startups. They like do also voluntary works, a consultancy in NGOs or in different boards and so on. Like you can do many things, and you can contribute to things in many different ways. I know some people initiate programs, like a professor I know from Blekinge. He started a like sort of a program with African students, like an exchange program. And right now, like 100% of his job is building, developing, and make this program sustainable. So it's very exciting and hasn't been done before in Sweden. So you have all these like possibilities, and you can be creative, imaginative even for the things you want to do. And that's the thing I like a lot in academia. And financial prospect in regular academic salaries are in average lower than industrial positions, I would say. But again, you can do lots of extra things, consultancy or other things that can actually also financially support you in the future.
It can be the other way around in the industry as well. I mean, you can teach when you are working in the industry. That's what I'll be doing very soon. So you can go back to teaching. Maybe not teaching at the university, but there are courses to teach. So, and as what Ece and Anna mentioned, pretty much applies to pretty much what I want to say as well. So there are lots of ways that one can advance in an industrial career. So being a manager, a lead engineer, a tech lead, or an architect. So there are different ways. If you like to be a manager, then there come many opportunities for becoming a manager and doing less like development. But if you like to do the development and also work from like a higher perspective with a more diverse set of skills, then becoming an architect would be the route to go. So yeah, and as Aisha mentioned, voluntary work, startups, consultancy, so it applies to everyone, both in academia and in the industry.
I think that startups is one of those great things where you also can work together with, from both sides, just like you said, Masuma. A lot of my friends started out at startups. So, they had PhD students at KTH because, I studied at KTH. So most of my friends come from KTH still. And then we had persons working properly at the startup, and then some of them did their PhD, but their supervisors were, and then were part of the startups. So, and some of them had even grown, which is really exciting. No, but this is brilliant. I think that, do we have any more questions in the chat? Or should we try to give some concluding remarks, maybe? So we have one more. Yeah, how has your background and experiences influenced how your position is today?
I think I more or less covered that part. It helped me quite a lot. The first job that I got as a data engineer, so like within the data field and outside my comfort zone of physics world, was a senior position. So, but this backend, PhD background, and that was what I was told in the interviews, that you are a senior, maybe not a senior in data engineering, but you have all this background behind you, which we are sure that will help you to organize your job and get up to speed as quickly as possible, comparing to like a junior data engineer. So, and this was true. So all the hard work that you're doing in your studies or in any other ways will help you to get through the challenges that you'll face in interviews or when you change your field to another area.
So I also sort of like covered how my background at least helped me during my PhD studies and later on, but I can maybe specifically mention about having a background in computer science, how it influenced my position today. I'm not quite sure if I studied a different background, I would still be that excited about having an academic career. I don't know if I, for example, studied, I don't want to offense to anybody, but like marketing or business or something, maybe I wouldn't be that enthusiastic about following a more like pure research based or like academic roles later on. But since computer science is like a developing field, you get more excited about like advancing your knowledge and like get up to date with the recent technological advancements, do research on that and so on. So that's why basically I later on followed this career path. I remember like, I guess around 2010 during my bachelor studies, the course I took for AI, how different it was than the courses now we teach about AI. So that's the part sort of like influence a lot my position today as an answer to the question.
Can I add something to that? the thing that you said about like the field of your studies or your research resonates a lot with me. So one reason that I found myself in a situation where I was trying to figure out what I want to do was that there was not a lot of new like things that I could learn within my old field. So it was not that I didn't like it. I liked it. I was good at it, but I didn't feel enough. So it pretty much resonates with me that one. Yeah, I mean, it very much depends on the field. I like to be a professor. I like teaching a lot, but it wasn't possible for me to get to learn many new and amazing like tech stuff that are happening every day.
Thank you. I think that maybe we can say some concluding remarks. Does any one of you want to start? Or I can start. Yeah, I can start. Right. Okay. So no, I think that this is really, really interesting and also really important to discuss. Now, in my dream world, so in an ideal world, we would have at least one lunch seminar during this year with WiDS Sweden, a digital one, where we could discuss, concrete advice, such as both of you gave, if you want to go from academia into industry, what would you do? And then also if you want to pursue an academic career, academic track, what would you do, to present your skill sets based on what you have done so far in life. And then I really like that both of you talked about, really daring to follow through with your interests and your dreams, even though there are difficulties. I mean, there are problems in both sectors. The internal politics I talked about earlier. Maybe it's just me then, that think that that's a big problem. But every company I encounter, I realize that, oh yeah, there's a potential minefield. Let's step carefully here. But then also, as I think that you said that, Masumi, crisis comes, crisis go. If you do your best, then that's all one can hope for, actually. And to add on to that, I think that's true, 100% true. But I also think it's a little bit about timing. It also helps, at least it helps me sometimes, to think that some things are never too late. My favorite example is about this very old lady from a small town in the US who decided when she was 62 that why not do a PhD in history? She always liked history and art. So she went and done it. And I mean, she had worked her whole life. She wasn't retired completely yet, but she still had quite a bit of spare time, if one might say so. And she found a professor that, a supervisor, and then she just went for it. And I think that that's brilliant. I love that story. So yeah, so it is possible to do things later on as well. Life doesn't end when you're 30. Okay, Masum and Eshe, do you have some concluding remarks for the audience?
I can go. Yes, actually this panel was also great for me as well. I guess you could sort of sense from my also talk and presentation of the things that every day I also try to make decisions about my career as well, and I believe most of us face that. And this is a recommendation to myself and everyone else here in the audience, that try to be open both perspectives or multiple perspectives. It's always possible to switch back and forth. You don't have to settle for only one possibility. It's always nice to actually explore different things, getting out of the comfort zone, challenge yourself. Every position, field, and so on will have good sides and bad sides. I guess there's no perfect work environment. Of course, if you feel that your job is perfect for you and you're absolutely happy, stick on to that. Go for it. Don't hesitate. But yeah, as you mentioned, Anna, you can get a PhD whatever age you like, and no one can stop you. And and of course, anybody need any more questions, you can always reach out to me, and happy to answer.
Yes. So what I recommend, for those who are still studying, especially those who are studying their masters, is that maybe you can pick up a thesis within the industry. So it will help you to get a feeling of how it looks like to work in the industry and what other skills you need to learn for the rest of your studies. And switching from going to the academia, maybe there are lots of more guidance, because there are these university websites and there are like many events that will show you how to join a program, what are the prerequisites. It's not the same the other way around. So the other way around, one needs to find the way. And one thing that could help is mentorships, find for mentorship programs. So, I mean, finding a mentor would help you quite a lot, because they have been through this before. They have done that in the past. And like me, or I'm sure the rest of the panelists here, we would love to help those who have been in the same situation. So, yeah. That would be my final words.
Thank you, and I agree. I offer Eshes and Masuma's help. No, I'm joking. I'm also here to help. No, but actually, thank you so much. This was brilliant. I hope that all of you who listened in to this panel debate also learned something. And as I mentioned earlier, Masuma and Eshe are both part of the WiDS organization in Sweden. We are so lucky to have them, and I'm so happy that you wanted to take part in this panel, Masuma and Eshe.